Cash Flow Diary Podcast, episode 544.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cash Flow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cash Flow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Cash Flow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because you and I, we know many things. You know about your business. You're out there building cash flow. You're doing something to earn an income. Now, what's also interesting is that many of us, over time, we get to a point to where we have extra funds or we're trying to achieve a particular goal. And then the idea of, what do I do with this extra money that I'm not putting back into my business? Where does it go? How do I invest it? How do I make my money make money? Now, there's a lot there in that one sentence, and we're going to unpack a lot of that today because I have someone with me today who I believe is going to say some things that, is going to be so profitable for you. And I'm hoping that you are listening intently because what's going to happen for you and I today is that we're going to learn techniques, concepts, ideas that are powerfully simple when it comes to investing. We may even hear some things that, I don't know if I agree with that, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Give us time. Hear the end, because at the end of the day, what's important is that you get to your goal with your money, just like you do with your business. And I have with me today the man from fearlesswealth.com, none other than RC Peck. And I'm excited because he wants you to know that it's time to stop diversifying. So let's get ready to listen, love, and learn from RC Peck. RC, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I am excited because very few people are willing to say, don't diversify. So I am definitely eager to get to that part of the story. But first, I must ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
I'm in.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So if you think about Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, etc., you get the idea because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, if you think about an entrepreneur, I can occasionally envision myself flying around town, using our products and services, saving customers one sale at a time. And yes, I'm probably wearing a cape at that moment. Also, though, if you think about, say, Spider-Man, just like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. There was a time where Spider-Man was just a kid going to school, doing his thing. And then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers, I have a superhuman ability. And now he's presented with a choice. Do I use this for good or evil? So my question to you is as follows. Before Fearless Wealth, before being on places like Bloomberg and CNN, CNBC, before investing even came to your mind, what we want to know is, who is RC Peck?
You know, when you ask that question, the first thing that hits my brain is when I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
And I was taking martial arts, and the main place I went was in Arlington Heights, and I lived in Barrington, so it was about a half an hour away. Mm-hmm. And at the Arlington Heights site, I could buy throwing stars for $2.
Okay.
And I could sell them for $8 at school.
Okay.
So I would have my mom or dad, I'd go there every Saturday, but I'd then have them sometimes take me midweek and go, oh, I want to do another night of Taekwondo. But what I was really doing was going there and taking my $20 or my $30 and buying 10 or 15 throwing stars, going to school in seventh grade and then selling them for buy them for 2, sell them for 8. And I did that. And I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. But I eventually stopped because a guy, and I remember him. He was popular and I wasn't. He came up to me and goes, I hear you're selling throwing stars or Chinese stars. I was like, maybe. Because I was like, am I about to get in trouble?
Right,
because,
right.
You probably shouldn't be selling weapons.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, he's a weapons dealer already. This is interesting.
Like, this is the 80s. But I was like, this is great. Like, I like this. And so when you asked that, kind of the first thing I thought of was it made sense for me to do that. And obviously my parents knew what I was doing, or maybe not so obvious, but they did. And also I stopped before I got in trouble. But I loved this idea of using a little effort, but more kind of intellectual property. I didn't have these words or ideas in my brain at 12, but that I could buy something for 2 and sell it for 8.
Right. It was natural, but I gotta say something here. You gotta understand that most people opt for candy at that age, but the idea of throwing stars, I must know, how did you identify a need? Like, were kids initially coming up to you saying, you know what, I would love to buy a throwing star if you have any extra? I mean, how did that, I don't even understand how that, it's like, I mean, do you understand where I'm coming from? People talk about kids and candy all the time, but I've never had a kid say, hey, do you have any throwing stars?
I think what it was that I brought them to school because I just thought they were the neatest thing. I was a huge fan of Bruce Lee, huge fan, still am today. I think he's one of the best entrepreneurs ever. And so I brought them to school because I just thought they were so beautiful and neat and different. And it's not what knives look like. Knives were the thing with a handle and a sharp pointy end, and these were different. Like you threw them, and I thought they were the neatest thing. And so I was showing them to my friends and like, man, where do you get those? I'm like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you could have this one for $6. They're like, $6, really? And that one would cost me $1.
Nice.
And so it's like, yeah, they don't have to drive there. They don't have to figure out where they are. And so I had the excitement. And then I saw it in others.
That's interesting. I love that. Yes. Demonstrating the product. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's good. So it was basically like, what was that? The shopping network right there at school. You were able to show it off, and I get that. Now, how do we go from throwing stars, words you never thought you would say? How do you go from throwing stars all the way to investments? Tell us what that journey was like.
The journey was on the back of dyslexia.
Okay.
So I'm dyslexic. I did not know I was dyslexic until my early 30s.
Okay.
So I'm going through school having this very odd experience. On one hand, I know I'm not dumb. In fact, I think I'm kind of smart. But on the other hand, like the first time I ever read a book, I was 19. 19 years old was the first time I ever read a book.
Interesting.
Prior to that, why would you want me to read a book, teacher? What do you mean you want me to write? Writing is so excruciatingly difficult. Wait, you want me to read something out loud in class in front of other people and then describe to them what I'm reading? Why would you have me describe what I'm reading? I just read it. And so there was this, it was really angering or maddening because it's like, it didn't make sense. Like I'm not dumb and yet I feel dumb. I'm smart and I do smart things and yet I don't. And it's like, and yet the school is telling me I'm not smart. And so my mom raised me and my 2 sisters to be artists. So lots of drawing. And I realized probably in middle school that I could ace any art class, like ace it in my sleep. And in my high school at the time, if you got an A in art, you got 4 credits for the A. It was the same weighting as math and physics and
Got it.
and English. And I happened to grow up in a very rich town. I was not. We were working class. And so I took every art class. And because I was good in sports, I didn't have to take gym. So I got another session or another period where I could get another 4 credits for an A. And so like I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to just, stack my schedule with art. and the art teachers ended up wanting to take my art home. They'd be like, hey, RC. I went by Ron growing up until I was 11. My family then called me RC, but in high school they still called me Ron. They'd say, do you mind if could I have this? I'm like, the drawing? Like, sure. And then a couple of the art teachers would create their own classes for me, like an independent study, which was still worth 4 A's, but it didn't take up any time in the day. And so, like, again, this is not happening consciously. I'm not thinking why do I feel dumb, but I'm not dumb? Why do I not feel, or society's telling me I'm not smart, but I know that's not true. And when you ask me that question, I think of that kind of dyslexic journey. And I see the same things happening with people and when they grow their money, specifically grow their money. They're like, something's wrong, but I don't know what's wrong because I earn well. I'm doing things the right way. And yet they look at the growth of their money. Mm-hmm. They go, but I'm not dumb. Mm-hmm. But then why is there such anxiety, stress, overwhelm, concern, loss? Like there's this mixed experience going on with them, like this dyslexic, undiagnosed. It's almost like this undiagnosed investment dyslexia that's happened. And they go to the industry, just like I would go to my teachers, and they go, "You're not trying hard enough to read." I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not it.
Right. It feels like I am.
Yeah. It's like, and I know I'm not dumb, but yet I'm getting these contraindications like, yeah, dumb people get these types of grades. You're getting those grades, therefore. And so like it was maddening. It was angering. I was an incredibly sarcastic kid. Mm. I angered teachers or my coaches. Because I didn't, and sarcasm is a form of anger. It's unexpressed anger. Right. So when someone is sarcastic, what they're really saying is, I'm feeling anger, but that's not really what's going on. What they're really feeling is hurt, but they don't know how to express their hurt, especially in this society. So that's kind of my experience of moving towards, Chinese throwing stars and going, wait a second. This is happening in the investment world. The investment world is telling you, no, Jay, you got to diversify. Oh, man, Jay, everything in your life is based on the year you were born because somehow, for some reason, the stock market cares about you. It cares about the year you were born, Jay.
Absolutely.
Therefore, you should center your entire investment world on the date you were born. And the stock market's sitting over there going, I don't care when he was born.
No, not at all. I mean, why would they?
Well, why would the ocean care what year you were born?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
So here's the thing that I'm already picking up from you. Status quo is not acceptable, which is fine. And inside there, that's where often genius emerges, is because you're looking at things from the beginning with different eyes and a different understanding. Everything occurs to you as you walk through life as, I can fix that, or it can be improved, or it can be different. So here's where I'm going. For every superhero, entrepreneur, etc., there's this moment where you have to decide, or where you're pushed to decide. Even if you feel called, you still have to go, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So you could have chosen to apply this skill anywhere. Why? Finances.
My parents' life savings was embezzled by their financial advisor who they trusted and liked when I was 19.
Wow.
Now, this was a guy who was invited to all of our 16 16th birthday parties or 18th birthday parties or family celebrations, because he was, again, a trusted and liked, advisor. And he stole my parents' money. He stole everybody's money. He was very democratic about it. He stole everybody's money at his, practice. And I was 19. My mom was 47. My dad was 50. And he stole everything from them.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, how do you do that?
Got it. So this is more of a mission, if you would, to maybe protect individuals from themselves in some cases and others?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one grow your money strategy on this planet is I trust and like fill in the blank.
Right. I trust in anyone other than me to make the decision.
Or, hey, Tony, I like Tony. He's a great guy. And his house is bigger than mine. And his wife's a little bit better looking than mine. And he works at name brand, big box advisor. And I like how I feel. I like how he makes me feel about me.
Got it.
You know what? I trust him to this whole area of confusion and nuanceness that just scares the heck out of me.
Well, and that's the thing. Okay, having been in my former life, and you would have no way of knowing this, but I was a financial planner. Part of what irritated me was my inability to offer my customers exactly what I felt that they needed, and it was worse because they all wanted the same packaged stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't work for you. But because that's what was endorsed by, I don't know, television and everyone else that they saw, they're like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. Yet, when you talk to individuals who we've seen or admired or read books about, that's not quite what they did. They were over-indexed in one particular industry or just stay focused on this one thing and make that work before they started trying to do anything differently. My question to you is simple. Where does this idea of diversification come from, and why is it so well propagated?
It comes from research papers between the 50s and the 70s. Okay. It comes from a place before there were really computers as we know them today. It comes from academia. It comes from people wanting to get their PhD, and you get your PhD by the guy who wrote the paper, and he's only going to give you your PhD if you kind of agree with his thesis. And this is well known in the academic world. I think it was Max Planck who said, science moves forward one death at a time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's try to make some changes in our money without having to die.
Well, not our deaths, but the people who lay down these beliefs.
Got it. Okay. Oh, I see. Because they're gone. Totally understood. So, but yet at the same time, today, when you talk to someone, anyone, in fact, many of the people who are listening right now, assuming they've made it this far, because we said don't diversify at the beginning, they're like, they don't know what they're talking about. But let's just assume that they're still with us. Most people feel like that's wise. It makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah, look, if you want to go to Seattle and you're in New York City, you can get on a flight that's an oversubscribed flight, right? There's waiting lists down the terminal, and that flight takes off and heads east over the Atlantic on its way to Seattle. Right. So if you know what the United States looks like, you'd have thought the plane would have started heading west, but it didn't. It's heading around the globe. So diversification is going to get you to Seattle. It's absolutely going to get you to Seattle. Now, it's going to take like 29 hours on a flight.
Yeah.
Right. Or, again, you could say get on the flight across the terminal that's pretty empty. There's a lot of open seats. And you can get on that plane, and that plane can fly west to Seattle and take about 4 or 5 hours. So people are not wrong when they say, no, look, I'm getting closer and closer to Seattle. No, diversification works. The answer is, but what do you want to achieve? You weren't given the option of 2 flights. You were given 100 different options of flying east over the Atlantic. And so you just presuppose, you assume, well, I could take the Concorde around the globe. I could take the 747. I could take a puddle jumper, right? But because everything's framed as head east, head over the Atlantic to go around the globe. So in a sense, everybody's right who says it works. And the answer is, yeah, it works. If you want to drive, 30 miles an hour across the country, right? Now I'm adding in a different metaphor. That will get you to where you want to go. Or you could say, well, look, is there a way to drive like 75 when the road is dry and flat and straight and the sky is blue and there's a 6-lane highway? Like, is really driving 70 dangerous? And the diversifiers would say, oh, no, you never drive 70. Now, just so you know, I'm not saying someone go 100% on Litecoin or one internet start, something like that. So I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is this idea, we're never given the choice to not diversify, right? Because every person just presupposes, well, of course you're going to diversify, but we diversify the best. We have this amazing algorithm of diversification. So you never know to question what everyone has said to you, from one big box advisor to the local guy who sells insurance. They all say, well, of course you got to be diversified. And your head is shaking up and down like, well, yeah, of course, right? Yeah, well, yeah, you drive across the country at 30 miles an hour. Well, yeah, of course. And I'm simply pointing out there is a much better way to get across the country that's actually lower risk and creates a bigger life.
One, I just got to say this, I was not expecting you to even say anything about any sort of digital asset whatsoever. And I was like, okay, I'm liking you more and more the more you keep talking, which is exciting, because the concept of never having been given, like just never, you've not been given the choice, is something that's like, wow, you're right. We've never been given the choice. And in order to do any of the things that you're talking about, I think I'm starting to clue in why it's fearless wealth, is because doing something that's the opposite of the way the salmon are swimming, we have this fear, this emotion that comes up. And then there's so much emotion attached to, our money. And a human can become attached to the outcome or feel stupid. Oh, I lost money, etc. But it somehow feels better if we all lose money together, but you still lost it. I mean, all of these things are coming up for me as I'm listening to you, and it's connecting around the idea of emotion. Like, there's a lot of emotion. There's a feel comfortable because I like that guy. There's a feel afraid because, ooh, you're doing something that I think is too risky and no one else is doing it, so it can't be right. It feels like there's something there that we're all responding to that's kind of driving these decisions more than logic. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'm glad that you are enjoying what you are hearing thus far. But here's one of the things that's really important. One of the most important things that you can do is get started. One of the things that I've said before, and I say again, once you get started, stay started. But more importantly, there can be lots of roadblocks to getting started. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove one of those roadblocks for you and make it a little bit easier. Because the thing that I don't want to stop you is thinking, do I need a local number? How about a long distance number? Or should it be 800? How on earth am I going to make that happen so that people can contact me as I'm out there building my business, making my cash flow grow? But most importantly, understanding that it doesn't have to be difficult. Many of you may know, but if you don't, there's a company out there by the name of Grasshopper. And what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow-diary. Grasshopper is the entrepreneur's phone system. It works like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware to purchase, no software to install. It's just the number that flat works. So if you are out there building that distributed workforce across many different locations, it's a way for you to still go out there and make your number be unified, simple, easy to use, something we've been using for quite some time. So again, go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Now, let's get back to the rest of the story.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's only two things kids cannot tolerate. Only two.
Okay.
And when kids grow up, let's just call them adult kids or adult children. But
yes,
it doesn't change. Like a kid, an adolescent, adult, there's only two things humans cannot tolerate. So I started with kids,
sure.
But it's really humans. There's only two things humans cannot tolerate. They can tolerate almost everything else.
Okay.
The first thing humans cannot tolerate is not belonging.
Understood.
And the first place we want to belong is to our nuclear family, our mom and dad. So we do what we have to do to continue belonging to them. The second thing kids or humans cannot tolerate is not knowing the rules. We've got to know the rules, right? That's why a good parent often can be much stricter, but consistent will raise a happier kid than, say, a parent who, do that sometimes, don't do that. Sometimes goalposts are here, sometimes they're over there, sometimes there are no goalposts.
Right.
That kid is going to grow up much more unhealthy, with a much more unhealthy behavior, because he or she doesn't know the rules, right? And so, and you said it, right? When you lose with everyone else, right? Every advisor, I'm guaranteed, has said to someone, "Hey, I lost too." "Oh yeah, my mom lost too." Like, "Oh, high five. We both got screwed." Like, and yet it's true, right? Because it's the belongingness. Like, okay, look, I will lose half my wealth if everyone else loses it, but not by myself. And yet people know, and here's the crux. People know it's probably not okay to get your wealth cut in half. Like, there's something wrong with that, even though they're told you really want to belong to this group. And yet parts of that human's going, I don't think I want to belong to that part of it. Like, losing half doesn't feel like I have to, but yet they have investment dyslexia. So they don't have the words or the consciousness to go, what is it? Like, what's that thing? Right? And so this is the problem that I think a lot of people are having. They know there's a problem, but they haven't been given the words or the images to be like, that's the problem.
So let this be clear. Let's be direct. What are those words? What are those images? How do we, for lack of a better way of putting it, set ourselves free?
So absolutely. The first thing is you have to look at a picture first. So let's just use the stock market, for example, because for a lot of people, the stock market loads up an incredible amount of angst and overwhelm and, mad and sad and afraid, which those are 3 of our 4 feelings. So it loads these things up almost simultaneously. So one of the ways that you can shortcut that experience is, let's say you read a news story, or you read a headline that says, bloppity blob, market crashed today by 0.12%. But the way you're hearing it in your brain is just how I said it. And I purposely used a very low percentage point. But I used the word crash. It is crashing right now.
Right.
And I mean, it is bad out there. It's down 2 points today. Okay. So I'm turning up the volume on what's happening in your brain, which is your amygdala is absolutely freaking out right now. It thinks something with large teeth and claws is sprinting towards you, because your amygdala is going, oh my God, I think I might die. And your amygdala is telling your limbic system, cortisol, turn the cortisol on, dump the brain with cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And so your brain absolutely goes into a fight or flight situation. Now, it doesn't know it's 2019 and you drive a Lexus and you have air conditioning. It doesn't know any of that stuff, because the brain is based more on, 100,000 years ago. But what if you saw the headline, or you just saw a little bit of the headline, and you knew immediately to go look at an image? Because what's happening in your brain when you read that headline is it's loading up a feeling, it's loading up images, it's loading up gustatory feelings. But what if instead you replaced it with an image, that I showed you an image that literally showed you, let's say, the stock market over the last 3 years. And I showed it to you in that moment, or you knew how to bring that image up. And you read the headline and you looked at the image and you went, oh, well, I know up and to the right means okay. I'm okay. And that last 2-point drop, plunge, I can't even see it. Like
Right.
that was the wind hitting your car, and your car moved to the left a micro of a centimeter that you didn't even feel, but you have an announcer in the back of your car saying, we just got hit from the left and the car moved to the right 0.039 centimeters. And you're just like, you'd kick that guy out. But if I showed you a price chart and you knew how to load up this image to your brain, because most of our brain is designed to look at patterns visually more than audibly. And so you knew how to load up this image and you look at it and you go, oh, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I don't need to panic, or this is not fight or flight. This was, I got hijacked. Oh, okay, my amygdala got hijacked. Stop reading, fill in the blank. That's not a good relationship in my life. And so to answer your question, you go to a deliberate image to arrest this cortisol dump or this hijacking of our brain. And it is exceptionally effective, because once you look at that price chart, for example, your brain is now calmed. It goes, I'll make it to my next birthday. Oh, my kids will be okay. Wait, I'm actually okay. And it immediately counters it. But we're not taught to think visually. We're taught to read words and sentences and paragraphs and pages and chapters. And during that whole time, our brain is loading up images unconsciously, sounds unconsciously, gustatory feelings unconsciously, and it's absolutely driving our life.
Now, in order to do that, though, that takes some, intention and, training. Both of those things are not exactly taught when you go to any sort of formal education or institution, because I get what you're saying. I mean, the popular phrase is often, when in doubt, zoom out, makes it easier to know what you're looking at, being able to learn to even interpret what those words mean, and the goal of this, where we're getting our information, which is usually not the same goal that I might have at that particular moment in time. When listening to this, though, and when thinking about it from your perspective, it can feel like there's, for lack of a better way of putting it, and having a military background, I'm like, it sounds like I'm under attack.
Oh, you are under attack. Like it's not a feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, we are being attacked, but we're not being attacked by the animal anymore with the big teeth and the claws, right? We're being attacked by highly paid and motivated people. Now, I'm not zeroing in on the financial industry, because this is going on today all over social media and the companies behind it. And I don't have a tinfoil hat on, but people are being paid very, very well to figure out how to. Let me say this. Society has figured out that if I can get you angry, I can get you to buy. If I can get you scared, I can get you to buy. Okay. So society has figured that out. So if I can load up scaredness or fear, then you're more likely to buy my fill in the blank.
I'm not liking where this is going. So, however, in any sort of game or war or strategy, there's an offense, and I'm hearing what the offense is doing. I'm going to assume that you have a defensive plan for us.
The defense, so it's simple. It's simple in the sense that it's not complicated. Okay. And simple and easy, I know you know this, simple and easy are not the same thing. Right? One of the best things you could ever do as a parent is to have a meal with your kids 4 times a week, and the meal only needs to be 12 minutes. So there's deep, deep, deep science around the dinner table kind concept. It's an easy idea. Sit down with your kids 4 times a week for 12 minutes with food. Okay, that's an easy idea. It is not simple to protect. So both the defense and the offense for the growing of your wealth is like, okay, how do I get to the image? How do I get to the right image? How do I get to an image that is best for my money? And you're right. It's not, I mean, I have been doing this training for 16 years where I can take anyone who is open and coachable to a different way, like a simple way, and literally can rewire their brain to teach them to get to an image or to know to start with an image, because that is rewiring the brain. So both the defense, if you actually read something on a website that scares you, your defense is get to an image. Is that true? Are we really crashing? Am I really about to? Oh, no. So that's the defense. And the offense is start with the image. So when you get hit during the day, even if it's people you love and they're like, oh my gosh, God, did you see the market crash today? Because those aren't their words. Those are the words of someone else they read and they believed them and they're passing them on to you. Oh my God, the market crashed today. Like when someone says that to me, I go, what does crashing look like?
Right.
And they're like, well, you know, like when a car crashes, I'm like, oh, you think cars are crashing because the market was down 17 points. Like, yeah, it didn't.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think so this emotional attachment though to, I mean, at least I've observed all of it. I mean, I observed the greed, the fear, the excitement, the self-worth. So much is attached to that. And yet what you're saying is that in order for us to be successful in this particular area, we have to somehow disassociate ourselves from that, which I think is true. And I keep thinking again about the men and women in our armed services. They're well trained to disassociate, have it literally stay focused, even though bullets and bombs are exploding around you, and get the job done. And it feels and it sounds, at least when you're talking, it sounds very, very similar. And I'm like, wow, okay. But that leads me to the question, what would the result be? What would you say if we were able to arrest these emotions and perceive things as they actually are versus how someone else wants me to perceive it? What could we possibly achieve on the other side?
What people achieve is a bigger life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they become bigger difference makers, and they become difference makers first to themselves and then to their cause and their community and their family. And if they're part of a church, to their church, they become bigger difference makers, because what happens is people are unaware how much of their life force, how much of their attention, how much of their time is actually being sucked away by unneeded angst or overwhelm in their life, right? Our lives are broken. I believe our lives are broken down to 3 parts: our health, our wealth, and our relationships, which I call self, because it's yourself and it's your life. And so you think about, if my wealth doesn't need to hijack me or take up what it's taking up, I can then start to give back. Right? I can give back my time. I can give back my money. And so, if someone has $1 million in the bank at 40, all things being equal, they're probably going to be a bigger difference maker than, say, if they have 100,000. And the stock market or the markets, it's an incredible way to grow your wealth, but we've never really been taught or trained to do it in a non-University of Chicago academic papers out of the 1970s and before, right? So we're using an incredible amount of effort, right? Because the boat that we're sailing has these foot wide holes in the hull, and we keep being taught to make bigger sails and more sails and this sails and that sails. It's like, first let's just patch the hull. Like, let's get that fixed first. And so the result is that bigger life, which means the non-diversified person, which I know you know this, but you don't start 9 companies and hope one of them works out. You start one and you focus on that. And then it may be the second one that works out, right? We don't diversify almost anywhere in our life. You don't marry 7 people.
Oh my God. Yeah, no.
You don't split your attention between your 7 kids. You may have 7 kids and you work with each one individually and you give them 100% of your attention, right? We don't do this diversifying thing anywhere in life. And yet this part of our life called growing our wealth, which I believe is a third of our life, we're taught to kind of go against nature. And then people are like, what's wrong? Why do I have investment dyslexia? Something's wrong. I'm not dumb. It's because there's this dysfunction with how we were taught to grow this part of our life.
Yeah. I find this interesting because, as you said earlier, that you could easily quickly put the tinfoil hat on and go, was that done intentionally? But we're not going to talk about that right now. What I am interested to know, and I'm sure a few more people are interested to know, is if they wanted to find out more information about what you're doing, what you're up to, what you got going on, what's going to be the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way for someone to connect with me or to learn about my tribe is to go to fearlesswealth.com. Same website I've had for 20 years. And they can opt in there. They can make a phone call there. That it's the next step is the easiest once they go there.
Totally understood. Now, as we wind down, I've got a question for you because I'm curious to hear your response. I mean, there's a number of individuals who have listened and they're like, okay, this makes sense. I'm ready. I got it. Or we've been able to get them to what I like to call the precipice of decision. It's that point where you make that decision in your head, but also at that same time, like I know, especially in this area of our lives, there's always that voice that accompanies those decisions. And it says things like, oh my God, you're going to do what? You realize that nobody else is doing that. And what happened last time you tried something different? And really, you're going to have how much money? I don't think you can do that. And for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're going to follow through. They're going to do exactly what you suggest. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
I would suggest 2 things. One, notice that the voice has always been there. So it's not going to go away, right? If it's there today, it's going to be there in 9 years and 24 hours to 48 hours. So those who are waiting for them to be different before they do the training will never happen. And they already know that. The second thing I would say is pretty quickly, if someone wants to jump to the front of the line or just walk to the front of the line, they can schedule a call with us and we can show them. And this is the great thing. Part of what you're saying is, how can you verify this? Like, give me some verifiable evidence, not like over mathematized, but just how can you, I want to verify this. And the neat thing about thinking visually with your money is A, it's immediate, but B, you can verify this very quickly, right? It no longer has to do with I trust and like RC, right? I tell my students and my clients, you'll never have to trust and like me. You probably will sometimes, and sometimes I might be mad. You might be mad at me, but know that you don't. It's not necessary because you can verify. Like if you're a good mechanic and you know how to fix your car, but you don't have time or you don't want to, you know how to verify what the mechanic's doing. You may want to like him or not like him, or you just may want to go to the best mechanic. But they're 2 separate things. So I think that's probably what I would say, that to get to a verifiable place is actually very straightforward and something we do with, curious or interested people all the time. So they go, oh, that's what you mean. Wow. Okay. What's next? This is interesting.
Got it. I love the fact, I resonate very well with individuals who just don't accept the status quo and are willing to ask the questions, regardless of how uncomfortable it may make someone feel, or ourselves feel, even for that matter, because I can imagine that there have been some unique experiences that you have had and your students have had because they were willing to learn to question, call up those images, and be different. So one of the things I want to do is I just want to be the first one to say just thanks. Thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
This has been great. I really appreciate the space that you created for this conversation. So thanks for that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means, well, fearlesswealth.com. Look, go, win now. Why? Because you know you absolutely heard something. You know you should be questioning more. You know that, man, I've made a lot of money and I still don't have what I thought I would have at this particular moment in time. There's probably something going on with that programming. Let's go figure it out. Let's go get different pictures in your head. When should you do that? You know it's now. And here's the fun part. No one is asking you to sell Chinese throwing stars. So you know you can do it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.